Welcome in to a Tuesday edition of Denmark and Marsh. College basketball season is over. The Yukon Huskies are back-to-back national champions. They are the first back-to-back champions for the first time since the Florida Gators in 2006 and 2007. I am Graham Marsh. I do some sales here at 1010XL. I'm also the video and podcast producer here at 1010XL. Alongside me is Dylan Denmark. He is the producer of Jaguars Today from 10 to noon, as well as Hacker After Dark from 8 to 10 at night. Dylan.
Yo.
College basketball is over for the season. The Yukon Huskies, like I just said, are national champs. Your thoughts?
I kind of expected UConn to win it. The way they were going in their first couple of games, and that one game they had that was close. That was on Easter. I forget who they played in the Elite Eight, where they went on like a 25-0 run. I think Illinois. It was Illinois. Yeah, it was like
I was gonna say, it was close until it wasn't.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so we got a game at the half, and then it was like 25-0. You're like, okay, like this team's they're, as they say, built different.
Right.
You kind of knew in the Final Four that I had the sense that it was going to be UConn and Purdue that were going to win the two games. They did, and then UConn won. And I mean, the big story is, that they went back-to-back, and nobody's done that since Florida in 06, 07. Does it seem like it's not as big, though? Like, and I understand that college basketball has changed a lot, and you don't know the players anymore because of, NIL and transfer portal and yada, yada, yada. It's still like a big deal, but it doesn't feel like a big deal.
Yeah. I do think overall it is less of a big deal than it was when the Gators did.
I was thinking about this before we started this. Like, think of every sports team that's went back-to-back in recent memory. So, like, we were born in 97, 98. From our lifespan that we can remember, you've had the Warriors go back-to-back. Alabama they went back-to-back one time. The Patriots in 04, 05.
The Chiefs just now.
Yep. That's really about it. The Yankees
Heat,
in the late 90s.
The LeBron Heat did it.
Yep, that's right. 12, 13. And then really college sports, Alabama football did it one time under Saban, and that's been it. So it's still incredible. It's just, I don't know. Like,
Georgia football.
Yeah, that's true. Like, if I don't know the players and I don't know their background, their story, and like how they're going to be in the NBA, like it feels like it's like not as big to me.
Yeah. It feels like not as big of a deal as it was when the Gators did it, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the main national reason, outside of because obviously it felt bigger for us because we live in Northeast Florida. You and I both grew up Gator fans. Like, obviously in our world it was a bigger deal, but I think on a national scale it was a bigger deal too, because college basketball is more popular then.
Yeah, Joakim Noah was going to be probably the number one pick in the draft, and he decided to come back for another year.
Yeah, that's
unheard of.
That would never happen.
That's unheard of.
Ever.
And then all the other starters too came back.
Right. So that was a huge deal. You're right. It's the characters. It's the fact that Joakim Noah, especially that second year, was the most hated player in the country by non-Gators, right? Joakim Noah in that run was treated like a Duke player, typically. Duke's always got that one guy everybody hates. Joakim Noah was that guy for 2 years for the Gators, and they were so good. And particularly that second year, they did it and they won it, which is what makes a back-to-back so impressive. That second one, they won it with all the expectations, and that's what UConn did when they capped it off last night. I'll say this, though. It doesn't seem as big of a deal on the national sports stage, but as much as I hate to admit it, because I love the Gators and I loved that run so much and I love the 04s and I love Gator basketball, this run was more impressive, in my opinion.
How so?
Because for Florida to do it once the whole squad decided they were going to come back it was almost like, okay, you should do it. You just won it the year before. Joakim Noah, again, like you said, was going to be the number one pick, and he's back, and everybody at Corey Brewer's back, and Al Horford's back, and Torian Green is back, and Lee Humphrey, and the whole squad. Typically, in basketball, in the past, and ending with that team, and then going back to the days when Duke went back-to-back and some others, that's how it's been done, because you're running back basically the same squad. For UConn to suffer the attrition they did, with 3 of their best players going off to the NBA and then still going back-to-back, in my opinion, that would be harder to do. Florida would not have gone back-to-back had Joakim Noah and some of the other crew.
Al Horford and Lee Humphrey gone, yeah.
And Billy Donovan is a hell of a coach. Listen, the 4 Elite Eights they went to a little bit after that is not as impressive as the back-to-back championships, obviously, but it's like that was a ridiculous feat in and of itself. So Billy Donovan was a hell of a coach, but you can't tell me Florida's going to win the 2007 national championship if all those guys don't decide to come back.
And that's a testament to the coaching that they got in the belief that, you know, the system that he has and you know, the development he has from his players, you know, from the ground up.
You mean Dan Hurley?
Yeah, from UConn. Yeah. I mean, because there's a lot of guys like we saw Coach Cal. We're going to get to him with Arkansas. You know, he was one of those guys that still believes in the one and done. It seems like he's going to die with a one and done, regardless if it works or not. That's an underrated thing with coaches, knowing what's working on the outside and then you implementing it, regardless of the age and how whatever has worked before. Okay, sometimes it doesn't work now, and you got to adapt. And okay, now I got to change. Okay, now we can get 5th, 6th, 7th year seniors, and I can get these guys that are 23, 24 years old, and sure, an 18-year-old is going to be good, and he's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, but these guys that are 23 and 24 are going to be better for me in college basketball. They're going to help me win a title and make a run as compared to a true freshman.
Yes. And when you look at it on the court, there's 2 ways, in my opinion, to win championships in any sport and any level of play. Either you're so good at what you do and how you do it that just nobody can stop it. I feel like Georgia, when Georgia football went back-to-back in 2021 and 2022, that was what they did. Their offensive line and defensive line were so good and so dominant that it just didn't matter. The opponent knew exactly what they were trying to do. They're going to run it down your throat and then run play action and occasionally use Stetson Bennett's legs and whatever. They weren't fooling anybody, but you couldn't stop it because they were just too talented, right? Or the other way to win a championship is be so well-rounded as a team that you can play any style.
And that was what UConn did.
Was UConn.
They didn't matter if they could shoot.
Yes.
They had a big man that could match up with Edey. It didn't matter.
You want to play in the half court and pound us down low? Okay, we got a 7-2 guy that can defend you and can score on you. You want to run up and down? Okay, we got guards that can run up and down with the best of them. We're in foul trouble? No big deal because we're deep.
Yeah.
We can play our backups in certain roles, and they can play significant minutes in a national championship game, and it won't cause us to get down.
Did you watch the whole game?
95% of it.
Okay,
yes.
so you watched most of it. I was in and out. I got home at halftime from Hack's show, and then I watched a little bit, and then with like 10, 8 minutes stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is done. They're not going to come back. So I was like, I had it on. I was on my phone. I was like peeking up 4 minutes left. I was like, UConn's going to win this.
That's the other mark of a great team like that. They reminded me in this way, not in the exact fashion that they would do it, but just in the idea. They reminded me in a lot of ways of the Warriors when they went back to back. And even the Warriors before that, when they when the Splash Brothers really came onto the scene. That second gear, no one can stop. No one has an answer for. Like the Warriors back then, they'd be in a game with the team and they'd kind of be trading blows back and forth. The Warriors might even get down they might even get down 4 to 5 points maybe. And then at some point, it would always be in the third quarter. The Warriors were famous for their third quarter. Clay hits a 3. Clay hits another 3. Steph hits a 3. Andre Iguodala inside and 1. Steph with and before you know it, they're up like 15.
Yeah.
You know, they
in a blink of an eye.
Right. UConn was the same way. It felt like every game, because I didn't watch every single UConn game start to finish, but especially as they got from like the Elite Eight and on, I was watching mostly every dribble of them because I really wanted them to lose because I didn't want Florida streak to get snapped. But there was a very common theme with them. They were ahead every time, but never by a lot at halftime. They'd always be up 4, 5, something like that. And then early in the second half, they'd get a little bit more momentum, a little bit more, and they'd kind of get it to maybe 8, 9, something like that. And then you'd blink 3 minutes later, they're up 20. The game's over. And they did kind of that similar Warriors thing. It's like that, it's a little bit different in college basketball because they only play halves for the men's, but like it's that third quarter portion of the game, right? That early second half where UConn would just hit that second gear, and it didn't matter who they were playing or how good that team was or what they did, they became unstoppable. And that's exactly what happened last night. Purdue was in there trading blow for blow, and then just like you said about it was like the maybe 13, 14-minute mark, something like that. UConn started to pull ahead. It was game over at that point.
Walter Clayton's declared for the draft. He can either go to the draft or if he does come back to college, he can only come back to the Gators. It feels like he's going to stay with the Gators, right? Like He's not going to be a high pick on the draft. You can see, I don't know how it works now with agents because of the NIL stuff, but you can get an agent. You can see what your, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Where you are, where you stand in the draft,
you can declare for the draft without.
There's a word that where you can see where you're going to be in the draft. Anyway. But I think he's going to come back, and it'll be a good get for Florida.
Those guys that quote-unquote declare for the draft but hang on to their eligibility pretty much always come back. It's very rare that they actually do end up going to the draft. Walter Clayton is a perfect example of a guy that wants to go, see where he lands, see what the NBA thinks about him. It's really less about, in my opinion, typically with these guys, it's really less about I'm actually truthfully considering going and declaring for the draft versus I just want to gather information on where I stand so that this coming season I know the certain things that the NBA is looking for me to improve upon to increase my stock.
And then also we had, I can't remember what day it was it Sunday? I think Coach Cal decides to go to Arkansas. Now, what was it, 2 weeks ago, whenever they lost, I said there was no shot that he was going to leave Kentucky. I was saying that from the sense of Kentucky's AD and Kentucky moving off from Coach Cal, not Coach Cal moving off from Kentucky. If you remember right after they lost to Oakland, the AD basically said, yeah, Coach Cal's our guy. He's going to stay with us. We don't have any plans on moving him. And then you hear there was a report, I forget who it was from, that they're closing in on a deal with Arkansas. I'm like, okay, how much of this is like BS? How much of this is rumor? And then lo and behold, like not even an hour later, it's official. I think he signed up a 5-year deal. I wouldn't say shocked. I was pretty surprised. But the more I think about it, Coach Cal just needed something fresh. He needed something new. You're with that kind of program with that much, not anxiety, but that much pressure for that long amount of time, and the team hasn't been the same since COVID. You've won one national title. You've had so much talent go through there that you see in the NBA, and he just wanted something new. I think that was pretty much what it was at the end of the day.
Bro had Devin Booker as a backup and didn't win the national title. That's crazy.
What year was it he had 6 lottery picks? Or 6 guys in the first round?
I think it was that year. It was 2015.
Okay,
sure.
yeah.
And Wisconsin beat him in the Final Four.
Yep.
And then Duke.
With the Twins.
Duke, the Grayson Allen Duke team beat Wisconsin in the Natty a couple days later. Let me ask you something, Dylan, pertaining to this. When a boy and a girl break up, okay, and they say, it was mutual. How often is it actually mutual?
It's usually one person wanting to move on, the other person agreeing.
Right. So what percentage of the time that a breakup is quote unquote mutual is it actually mutual?
It's never mutual.
Never? So 0%?
I mean, not 0, but usually...
Like 1%?
It's usually one person wants to get out of the relationship and the other person's like, okay.
It's like maybe 1 to 2% of the time that both people actually are in agreement that it's time to move on and they're both cool with it, right?
Yes.
This felt like that rare 1 to 2% with Cal in Kentucky. Because I think it was a situation where I think the fan base was sick of Cal. The fan base wanted to move on. The fan base wanted to go elsewhere. But with the buyout and everything, I tend to not think the buyout was as big of a deal as people made it out to be, but still, there was still some hang-ups. There were some strings attached to prevent them from moving on, and obviously, like you just said with Kentucky's AD making the comments, it seemed like everything was, they were going to ride it out at least one more year and see what happened. That said, I don't think both sides were crazy about running it back again. And then Arkansas comes in. Arkansas is dying to have Cal. They want to pay him a ton of money. I don't think Kentucky was like, oh no, don't take the job. I don't think they were that hung up about it. And I think with Cal, like you said, it's an opportunity for a fresh start and a ton of money. But I think this is a rare instance where I think both sides do win. I think it's mutually beneficial for both sides to part ways. I think, listen, this happens in sports sometimes. Sometimes things just run its course. It doesn't mean Cal's a bad coach. It doesn't mean that
Kentucky made the wrong decision in getting him.
Right. It's just they were there for a long time, and it's time for something new.
Yeah, I mean, think about the college landscape right now and college football and basketball. How many coaches have been with their team for over 10 years? The list is very short.
Very, very short.
I mean, like it's Dabo and
it was
Kirby's
obviously
coming up on that 10-year stretch. But Kirk Ferentz at Iowa is the longest tenure coach in college football. But that's just college sports now, where it wears on you, and you want to move on. And I think it's going to move by Kentucky. I think it's going to move by Coach Cal. And now the question is going to be, what's going to happen with Kentucky? I don't know. This is something I know for a fact, and I'm pretty certain of this. But it's not going to be Billy Donovan, and I highly doubt it's going to be Jay Wright. I just don't see the two guys I got out of college for what the college landscape has become, and them getting out of what they are in the NBA or ones on TV, and them getting back in the game of college basketball. I think it'll be somebody that's a young up and coming guy that we really don't know about, and they'll probably hire him if I had to guess.
What about the now second to most recent coach to go back to back?
Yeah, I mean if he wants it, but
do you think Billy Donovan will make that move?
No.
I don't. I really don't either. That said, I don't think the speculation or rumors are like ridiculous. 'Cause I think it's pretty easy and fair to kind of make those comparisons. It's if there was a job, a college job, that an NBA coach would leave their NBA job for, it is Kentucky. So it's not crazy to think, and also Billy he hasn't been a bad coach in the NBA, but he hasn't been what he was in college at all in the NBA. In the Chicago thing, like the Bulls could be sort of looking at blowing everything up and starting over soon, or at least kind of financially restructuring things, and Billy may stay around through that. He may not. There's a lot of question marks in Chicago because they haven't been all that good. So it's certainly possible. I don't think Billy takes that job. I also agree with you. I don't think Jay Wright takes it, but I don't think that's impossible. Nate Oates just came out with a statement last night that he ain't leaving Bama, which he was by far the number one candidate in my opinion, but made easily the most sense to make that jump. But he might have gotten, I'm sure he had a phone call with the AD or something.
Yeah, and all these guys get phone calls from their agents like, hey, what's his price? Is he interested? Like, they all, like ADs, for the people that don't know, like you always have a list of candidates, regardless of how good or bad your coach is. So you always have that list ready. So when something like this happens with Coach Cal, it's ready.
Right.
You got it ready to roll.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you would expect the decision for Kentucky to be soon, probably the next week or so, because, I mean, these jobs don't go vacant for a month or two, obviously. So,
And it's Kentucky.
I mean, they're what, the number one job you'd probably say, at worst, top three?
Yeah, I think the top three, I think there's 3 college basketball jobs that are head and shoulders above the others, and these 3 are pretty interchangeable, I think. I don't think any 3 are better than the others. Kentucky, North Carolina, and Kansas are pretty much the top 3. Duke, people say Duke, but the thing is, and this is the reality, we haven't really seen Duke as a successful program outside of Coach K.
That's true.
Everything Duke is Coach K. He built everything there. So we just don't have a big enough sample size yet of life after Coach K with Duke to see if they as a program transcend that and are legitimately just a true blue blood where the program is bigger than any one person, or, you know, we don't know this. In 15 years, what if they're Indiana?
No, they can go on the downspill and they can see a drought of not having any championships before they get another good guy.
Exactly. So, but with North Carolina, I mean, this dates back to Dean Smith. And Kansas, the same thing, obviously, and Kentucky. But yeah, I mean, Kentucky basketball is Alabama football. It is Ohio State football. It is the same type of job.
People in the entire state live, die, and breathe.
I mean, look, Gator fans, make no mistake. I don't think they're not going to call him. But if Kentucky called Todd Golden, he would leave tomorrow and take that job.
Yeah, and he would be a smart person to take that job.
Right, exactly. And it's not a knock on Florida. You and I bleed orange and blue, but it's just the facts. I mean, Kentucky is Kentucky. So I agree with you. I don't think it'll be a long search. You know, a week from today, they're going to have a coach, I would imagine. So, and plus, I mean, nowadays with not just recruiting, but also the portal, you can't afford to go very long without a coach, or else the whole program is going to transfer out.
Yeah, then you're going to have like 4 guys left on your team, and you have to build it up with whatever the scraps are left in the portal.
Yeah, it just can't happen. So
the question I want to throw around for the Jaguars, we'll get out on this. Graham, who is the one person in the draft if they were to fall? Let's just from this standpoint, that's expected to go top 12, top 13. You look at mocks. I'm sure you look at mocks all the time.
Yeah,
it's mock season until the draft time comes, which is in 16 days, which is
I love mock
pretty
season.
wild. Of the consensus guys that are supposed to go top 12, top 13, and say the Jags don't go corner, just say for the sake of the argument, Arnold's gone and Mitchell's gone, because that looks like probably the 2 top corners in the draft. Who falls to 17 if it were to happen, and you say Jacksonville's got to take this guy? I don't care who's available. They got to take this guy because he's going to be really good.
Any position?
Any position.
Well, before I give my answer, can I guess your answer? Because I know what it is.
Yeah, you probably know what it is.
Brock Bowers.
No, I was going to go Jared Verse. I feel Brock Bowers, I just feel like he'd be a waste here. Like, you already have Evan Ingram. You drafted Brenton Strange last year. If they can use Brenton Strange as to what he was in college, a good receiving tight end, he can be used. Now, how good is he? We don't know because we didn't see it last year. I just feel like if Brock Bowers comes here, there's so many other needs that you can get from the draft and plug in from day one, and Brock Bowers doesn't do that. Even though I think Brock Bowers is a can't-miss guy, Brock Bowers, I don't understand why he falls in some mocks. I think regardless of the head coach, the quarterback, the offense that he goes to, I think Brock Bowers is going to do well and have a good NFL career.
So you wouldn't take him because of the need that isn't there?
Yeah, correct.
Counterpoint. Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker play for the Jaguars. So Jared Verse, the need's not there, right?
Yeah, but you can never have too many D linemen.
Fair. Okay, so my answer for this is a guy that I realistically think could fall, but probably won't, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Rome Odunze.
Okay.
Rome Odunze, I mean, I'd say Marvin Harrison too, but
he ain't going outside the top 5.
It's more likely, it's far more likely Rome Odunze could maybe, I don't think Rome's going to fall. I don't think Rome falls in the top 10. But we're just asking, and there's always like a guy or two that does fall that no one expects to. Rome. And then maybe even a little bit more likely Malik Neighbors. Those, because again, I'm excluding Marvin Harrison from this equation because it's not even a pipe dream. It's just not going to happen that he's going to be available. If Rome or Malik somehow fell that far, those two receivers, no questions asked, you got to sprint to the podium. And take
I agree. I see like less than 2% chance that either one of those guys fall to 17.
The more realistic receiver that could fall there is Brian Thomas. I tend to think, in my opinion, that the drop-off from Brian Thomas, between Brian Thomas and the first 3, is great enough that I'd rather take whatever corner's available, whatever offensive lineman's available, that type of thing. And this is an extremely deep receiving class. I don't know how big of a gap there is between Brian Thomas and then Keon Coleman and Ricky Pearsall and all these other receivers.
And Ricky Pearsall is evidently he's going like up. He keeps going up in this draft stock.
Right. And that's in a ridiculously deep receiver class. So unless I'm getting one of those top 3 who I think their bust potential is lower, and I think their ceiling is about as high as it gets with those 3. Those 3 I think are head and shoulders a better pick than anybody else. But after that, I wouldn't take a receiver at 17 after those 3 because it's like, okay,
there's no value.
Right. How much better is that pick at 17 than whoever I might pick at 40? Or it's 40,
48.
Right? 48, sorry.
Yeah. 48 or 49, one of the 2.
I don't think that's a huge gap. So I'd rather just get better value in the second round. Because I don't know if Ricky Pearsall is going to be available. I don't know if Ladd McConkey is going to be available. I don't know the specific guys. But I know there's going to be a pretty damn good receiver available in my second round.
You'll probably have Keon Coleman available. If I had to guess, Ladd McConkey available second round.
And Keon Coleman and Brian Thomas that different? Is it that much more likely that Brian Thomas is a great NFL player than Keon Coleman? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. And it's all dependent on the quarterback and the coach they go to that's on the offensive side. If Brian Thomas goes to, I'll just say the Chargers, and he has Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, I think he's going to do exceptionally well because, the Chargers got rid of Everett, their tight end, Austin Eckler, and then Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So, there's a spot to be had there. If you go to an average team that's...
Herbert is the Will Smith meme at the end of Fresh Prince, where he's
looking around.
He's standing there in the living room, and there's nobody in there.
Yeah.
That's who he is right now.
Yeah, with him and Quentin Johnson, who had a really bad rookie year, but was really good at TCU.
Had a Caleb on Chase on type of.
Yeah. It's so much with a receiver is your quarterback and the connection you have with them. There was no speak of Rashee Rice a year ago that I remember in the draft, and then he gets picked up by Kansas City, and then he's obviously really good because of no top guy around him, and then Patrick Mahomes is obviously Mahomes.
He's just not a good driver.
Yeah. bad judgment. I don't want to take a receiver in the first round. I'm going to keep hitting on this. We did have Tony Pauline on the show last Wednesday, and he thinks Brian Thomas is going to be like a super stud. He thinks that obviously outside of those top 3, Brian Thomas is going to be a guy that's going to be really good. And he said that he had him going to Jacksonville in his mock last week of Sports Kita. He's up in New York. I still don't like that, man. I would be fine. This is me. Even if Mitchell and Arnold are still gone, I still take Kool-Aid. No, I still take Kool-Aid. I think nobody.
I don't think Kool-Aid is very good.
And Tony Pauline said this. He thinks that nobody would like to pick, but then once you get to the season, you get to October, People be like, "Hey man, that's a pretty good pick." I don't know.
Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
I didn't when I watched Alabama games, I didn't love Kool-Aid as a player. I came away kind of unimpressed. I thought there were multiple times he got beat. Arnold I thought was much more consistent, and clearly scouts do too. There's a reason he's almost for sure going to go higher than Kool-Aid. I don't know, man. It's tough because I do think that the way the board is probably going to fall, granted that's an unpredictable thing, but just kind of thinking about how it potentially could fall, corner will probably end up being the best position for the Jaguars when you match need and value. You know what I mean? It's going to have the best, like the players available there to take, Kool-Aid being one of them, even though I'm not a huge fan. He's obviously still a top prospect. Obviously, it's going to go in the first round most likely. Nate Wiggins could be there. Arnold might be there, probably not, but might be. I think Quinyon Mitchell almost for sure won't be there. But one of those guys that you could feel good about taking potentially will, and it's a huge need. I don't think tackle is dissimilar. I think you could potentially grab.
You could buy me on tackle.
And with tackle, man, what if they draft the tackle at 17? Do you just cut Cam Robinson straight up if you do that? You say
if you don't have anybody in the marketplace that wants them, then you have to.
So okay, let's say I draft a guy. I draft a tackle, and I think that this guy at 17, or even if Balky does what he did last year and trades back a couple spots and gets to whatever. Let's just say he gets a tackle, and this tackle can play right. Trent Baalke himself has said multiple times this offseason, Anton Harrison can play left. He's been adamant about that. He has said it very clearly multiple times. Anton can play left. I think he has said that for a reason. I think that early in the draft, whether it's a 17 or if they trade back somewhere else in the first round or maybe their second round pick, somewhere early in the draft, I think they're going to invest in a tackle, have that tackle play right this season. I think they're going to move Anton to left. I think Walker Little is still going to be the backup swing tackle, and I think they're going to let Cam Robinson walk. I still don't believe, and I thought they would have made this move before free agency, but perhaps they just wanted to have somebody in-house first. I still do not believe that Trent Baalke is going to allow Cam Robinson to play for the Jaguars this year at his current number. You just can't justify paying a guy that has extreme availability concerns his entire career so far, suspension and injury together, $21 million. When he's a good tackle, but he's a B-plus tackle. He's not Trent Williams. I believe that at some point they will invest in tackle somewhat early in the draft.
So top 4 rounds?
Yes. Top 3.
I would like it. I would have moved on from Cam by now, but I still think Cam plays. They restructure his deal. He plays somehow. In a worst case scenario, he gets traded because
I just don't know.
Has a
but why wouldn't
tackle?
Why wouldn't they have done this already? Why would they have not restructured him already?
Probably because I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Now cutting him, or maybe even trading him, but I don't know what his market's going to be at how much he costs. But moving on from him entirely as a player, you can sell me on they don't want to do that yet because they want to see how the board falls, who they might get in the draft. They want to see who his replacement might be and what that might look like. That I'll buy. I'll listen to that, and I understand that. The restructure thing, I hear you. I think that's a good path. I think that's a good thing to do here. And it makes sense because you might want to still hang on to an experienced lineman who's been solid when he plays, but he's got availability concerns. So let's restructure that number and make it not so much of a hit on our cap. But if that were the case, I don't know why they wouldn't have done that before free agency to clear up some space. They still got to pay Josh Allen. Okay, so why can you restructure Foye Oluwakin's deal that didn't, or it wasn't even a restructure, it was an extension, a deal that didn't really need working on right now. Why can you do that, but you can't touch Cam Robinson, who, again, $16 million of savings, man. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's really confusing. So I tend to think they're not going to restructure. If I had to guess today, I think they're going to draft the tackle somewhat high, whether it's the first, second, or third round. I think fourth, you're getting iffy if you're planning on starting a fourth round tackle.
Yeah.
And cutting Cam. I think it's got to be round 3 at the very latest. And then they're going to cut Cam. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. That's your statement April 9th. Anything else before we get out of here? And then we got a Gator spring game on Saturday. We're going to talk about the spring game on our next pod, probably Thursday. I'm only really interested in see DJ Lagway. Like, that's the only person I really care about that I want to see him. And I mean, it's spring ball. It's very vanilla. Coach Napier said he's going to split the teams up, try to keep it as even as possible, and see how it is. Like, you want to see this matchup and this scheme and all that. I only care to see DJ Lagway and what he can do and, show off his talents and just see some stuff. I'm not big on spring ball and see, this person does this and this person does that. Because how many times do you hear it in spring and then come fall and it's like nothing, But yeah, it is. It's that time of year. We got the Masters this weekend, and what else we got coming up? It's April.
The draft.
I'm just thinking of other sports.
NBA playoffs, my man.
The NBA does absolutely.
The NBA playoffs, my man.
It does. I don't know what happened. The NBA has just lost me. Like, basketball, period. Just.
You're
I
not
just
excited
don't
to
care
watch Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic?
No.
And LeBron?
Maybe after the second round, or after the first round, I'll start watching. But
dude, I love the NBA playoffs. I would watch. If I could, I would watch every single dribble of the NBA.
Yeah,
playoffs.
I'm the polar opposite.
I love play. And now the regular season, I hear you. The regular season can bore me a little bit, particularly because I don't have a team in the NBA. Like, I don't have one specific team that I root for that I'm a diehard fan of. Versus college basketball, I have allegiances, the NFL, college football, obviously. So the regular season can be hard. If I had a team that I was more passionate about, I think it'd be easier to watch, but it can get tough because there's just so many games and so many times where star players don't play and all that. But the playoffs come when everybody's playing and it's nut-cutting time and careers and legacies are on the line. I love the NBA playoffs a lot, and it lines right up with the hockey playoffs,
Yep.
Dude. Playoff hockey is awesome.
Yeah, I watch it time to time. I watched. It's funny. I watched the Lightning. I've probably watched like an hour of hockey my entire life, and I watched like the last 10 minutes of the Lightning Penguins game. It was like 4-2. Then the Lightning came back and got 2. Saw a referee get KO'd. He got knocked out. Literally, he got knocked unconscious because he ran into a player.
Wow. And
then the Penguins end up scoring a late goal and winning. But it does look fun. Like, every time I watch it, the little bit I do, I just don't know anything.
Are you the type of person that misses football right when the Super Bowl's over, you give it like a week or two and you miss football?
No, because I'm all in on track right now with coaching. So like that consumes all my time.
Well, I just mean in terms of you being entertained. You're busy, obviously.
Right. No.
Let's say
I like that there's a break in football because when football season gets here, it's like we're all in. It's the only thing we're talking about. I can't have football like talking about the UFL. Like, I can't. No. I like having that break.
Yeah. When do you start missing football in terms of watching it? We work in it, so
like July, like early part of July. Start getting that. It's like, okay, like August is almost here.
For me, because I do really like the NBA playoffs, that carries me through early to mid-June when you have the finals on. Once the NBA finals end, because I'm not a baseball guy at all. I don't really watch baseball. Once the NBA finals end in June, you give it about a week after that, I'm like, all right, I want football.
Yeah, I can watch college baseball. Like, I watch a little bit of the Gators. I know they're not doing well. Like, those dudes play like they play with so much passion. Like dude gets a strike 3 call and they're like, I don't know what it is, but like when you see that they care, it seems like you have more embedded interest. Like the MLB, like I'm a Braves fan. It's like whatever. Like they lost. Who cares?
The CWS was really fun last year watching the game. I watched like every pitch of that with Florida and LSU, but like I feel like that's not very like indicative of if you're a baseball fan. I mean, that's our alma mater in the national championship. Like obviously we're gonna watch.
And it's LSU. It's a big rival.
Right.
Yada yada yada.
But like a regular year, if Florida goes to the
regionals and loses in the first round, like I'm probably not gonna watch.
I don't think I'll watch a single pitch of that.
Yeah, I'll be watching. That's something I like watching college baseball though.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just not a big baseball fan. It's still too. College baseball is a little bit better, and I know they put the pitch clock in the MLB, which is nice, but it's just still like the pace is a little slow for me. There's just not enough. There's not quite enough action going on. It's just my whole life I've tried to get into it because I'm such a big sports fan, sports person, and that's always been the one sport that I just didn't get. And I think I am who I am at this point. I'm 26 and I've never remotely gotten into it. I don't know that that's ever going to change. I don't know if I'm going to flip a switch and love baseball.
Yeah, you're not going to start watching WrestleMania on Sunday nights.
Oh, no, that's another one, dude. And with due respect to the host of your nightly show, because my man Hack loves him some wrestling. That's one like baseball. I'm not a baseball fan, but I get it. Like I get the appeal. I get why other people would like it. Dude, wrestling, I don't get it, man.
I don't either.
I don't get it, dude. And apologies to whoever's listening to this and loves it and whatever. Comment and tell us we're idiots. That's fine. I understand. But I don't get it. I mean,
I understand like what's going on, but I can't get into it and like follow the storylines and watch it week to week. Just not my cup of tea.
I mean, maybe being there would be pretty damn cool to see all those guys and see The Rock and like that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's
like,
different.
That'd be cool, but like a Saturday night watching
pay-per-view.
That, I mean, when that was on, it was WrestleMania that was on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
This past Saturday. And everybody talked about how great it was. And I'm sure it was great. I'm sure it was awesome.
Nostalgia.
But I mean, when it's on at the same time as the Final Four, I mean, dude, like, I'm watching the Final Four.
Yeah,
like,
not happening.
So that's just one sport I don't get it. Again, there's sports I don't like, but I get it. Wrestling, I got nothing for.
Not one of them. Yeah.
UFC, boxing, they're not
I like
really
watching
my thing,
UFC, the big fights.
Like UFC and boxing aren't really my thing, but again, I understand. I get the appeal. I get why someone would like it. I don't get wrestling at all.
Yeah. All right, we got to get out of here. I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Grant Marsh. Denmark and Marsh Pod on the 1010XL podcast platform, wherever you get your podcast needs. We're on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube at some point after the pod is recorded. That's it for me, Graham. I'm glad we all survived the eclipse, and we're not blind because we're not dumb and look up at the sun. And before we get out of here, so everybody had an excuse day at school. 1,500 people. There's 1,500 students at the school at Baldwin. 300 showed up yesterday.
Why was it?
Because it was an excuse day for the eclipse.
Well, the eclipse is happening, so we ain't got to learn?
Yeah, we are so soft as a society, man. Yes.
Excuse day?
Yes, like you have to show up.
What the hell is that? I've never even heard of an excuse. I mean, I know what it is. I can put two and two together.
Right.
Why is that
I
a
don't
thing?
know. I showed up to school and literally nobody was at school.
Is that like the equivalent of like a mental health day? Like at work?
Yeah, or a hurricane or
when you were going to Baldwin, because you went there as a student, was an excuse day a thing?
No. It's a new thing.
So this is new. Okay. That's what I figured.
It's a new thing.
An excuse day? How often do these happen?
I think this is the first time it's happened.
Okay, so it's not like...
Yeah, it's because of the eclipse, because it was going to happen at 1:45 allegedly, and they're like, y'all don't have to show up if y'all want to, because school gets out at 2.
Okay, well, I mean, that's not as bad. At least it's more rare than the way you were saying it. I thought this was something that like every couple of months there was just was a just because excuse.
And this was a countywide thing too, wasn't? Like I mean, I'm driving down I-10. I see my man between the 295 and Lane Avenue and I-10. He's working a bulldozer and making sure we're getting an extra lane heading downtown, and kids can't go to school. Like, oh, we're getting soft, man. Soft. I'm done.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's it. We'll see y'all Thursday.